Hey there, real quick, just want to share some exciting news. So Coach Josh and myself are going to be doing a $10,000 scholarship giveaway with $10,000 of funding towards our online coaching program to celebrate 10 plus years in business, helping clients transform all around the world. So this is something we've never done before, but we wanted to give back. Obviously, we wouldn't be where we are without all of you amazing people supporting us over the years. And of course, with it being the holidays, it's a great time to give back. So all you have to do, first link down below, just share why you feel like you should be accepted for this scholarship. We're gonna be giving away one full ride as well as some partial scholarships. So when you click that first link, just make sure to share your goals in very deep detail. The more information, the better, to help us better choose who's going to win these scholarship funds. So we can't wait to hear from you. We can't wait to hear about all of your amazing goals, what you're striving for, why it means something to you. This application should only take a few minutes, and then the scholarship winners will be announced in a few short weeks. And we can't wait to give back and help some of you awesome people out. Now into the episode.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I'm your coach and host, Josh, here with
His co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
This is Motivation Monday. You might know Tromba Kyle, but I don't know if you know extra large coffee Kyle with an espresso shot. Today I'm like, Kyle, are we going to film one of the best episodes ever? And he's like, no, I don't need that much caffeine. And then I said, let's make it a great episode, man. And he did it. He took one for the team. He's taking a sip of the coffee. So we wanted to bring extra motivation because we know we're coming out of that Thanksgiving fun. We're pushing into the holidays. Maybe people are winding down at work. It's getting more tempting to sit around in your pajamas and just maybe relax, take it easy, eat some comfort food. But as we know, we work hard to maintain our habits, to have this season be a good time. You don't want to be coming out of it saying, what did I do? What was the mistake I made? So you tuning into this is a great step. I encourage you to keep tuning in and getting some motivation. But with this being Motivation Monday, we're going to jump into our primary question. And that is, I'm having a hard time with glute activation. Any glute focused exercise such as hip thrusts, RDL, lunges. I do feel I find them more in my hamstrings and lower back, and I rarely feel it in my glutes. What tips do you have to solve this? Now, I love this question because if you know me and Kyle, mind-muscle connection is a big thing. You want to actively be working the muscles you're trying to work, and obviously there can be an expense if you're not working the correct muscles. Example, if my glutes and lower back are really sore when I'm doing the bench press, there's probably a big problem going on there because those are muscles that necessarily shouldn't be sore as a result of that. And if you're wondering how that's even possible, some people when they bench, you'll see them completely lift their butt up every single rep. They'll turn it into like a hip thrust movement, and perhaps they're doing more weight than they should. They're not actually doing the exercise correctly. And it's a different story if you do it on like your last rep or something than if you do it every single time. But what I will say is like, you're not going to see many people thrusting when they do the bench press. I rarely see this, if ever. So I think people build up mind muscle connection more in their head than they should. So if my goal is to work my chest, I want to get a big chest and I'm doing bench press, it's natural for me to feel that in my triceps, my shoulders, and even potentially my biceps. And you might wonder why those other muscles. So you actually have your primary mover, which is your chest, right? And then you have secondary movers like your shoulders and your triceps, which are engaged. And then you also have your muscles that will assist the negative. So actually resist gravity in that movement. And that's where your biceps actually would take play. And it's a very, very small role, but it is natural maybe if underdeveloped biceps or you're doing really slow negatives, maybe your biceps would get a little sore as a result of that. Does that mean you're benching wrong? Not necessarily. And quite generally, if you're able to lift the weight and you're able to lift it without any glaring form issues, I wouldn't get too in your head about mind-muscle connection. I think people get really, really worried about it and they'll do all these funky things. And I find actually one of the easiest ways to fix mind-muscle connection is to stop thinking about it. If I load up a heavy weight for Kyle for bench, let's say he's not feeling it, and he wants to feel his chest, he wants to learn how to do it more optimally. Sometimes when you go heavy, your body will autocorrect and force into the pattern it needs to do, with some exceptions. So if you're using too much weight for like a curl, it's natural for you to use your back and to heave. The body's smart and it knows how to cheat. But most generally, when you're using a challenging weight and you get the gist of the exercise, you have the basic form tips. And if you don't, you could get them in 2 seconds by getting our free form guide. I'll make that the second link in the description down below so you can grab that totally free because you can see the before and the after of what to do, some common mistakes. But if you're just generally doing it pretty right, let's say 70% right, you naturally will use the right muscles. Even if they're not the ones getting super sore, I assure you they're being engaged and it will work with time. There's some cues you can use to actually improve the connection over time. For this bench press example, I don't actively do this when I bench press, but if I really wanted to get my chest going, I would pull in on the bar. So you could think of pulling out to kind of engage your lats. That's a common cue. Like obviously you can't pull the bar out. And if you're watching video right now, I'll show you guys. So you're pulling out like this. If you even do this at home, you'll see it's your lats. Then if you push in, you can see I'm already engaging my chest. So there's things you can do to engage them more. But like I said, if you're using a heavy enough weight, your chest will assist and be part of that. And obviously arm positioning and different cues can matter a lot. And that's where obviously knowing you're doing the form right is correct and important. But most generally people get too in their head about this, because even if you're doing glute focus exercises and you're feeling these support muscles for these movements, that's natural. Like when you're doing hip thrust RDL lunges, like other muscles are going to be involved. Your posterior chain, especially in a thrusting movement, like your lower back, can be engaged. And over time, you could just keep it top of the mind to work that glute, think about it, work it through, remove assists like keeping your arms or using muscles that shouldn't be involved in the movement. A good example of this is if you're doing leg press and you're pushing on your knees. There's no need for that. You're involving your upper body. You're confusing how much weight you can actually handle. Instead, just hold on to the grips, let your legs use it. If you're on your last rep and you're dying and you're trying to grind through a rep, that's a different story. But I want to take a little bit of a different angle because Kyle can give you some tips to actually improve mind muscle connection and is a tool. But I know people who are doing like nice curls. I had a friend, he's like, I never feel my biceps. I never engage my biceps right. And like his biceps were growing, it was fine. Like some muscles, you're just not going to feel crazy contractions the same way you do others. And over time, it might improve, it may not. But people get way too in their head and they'll do all these super funky movements in the gym trying to isolate or get connection when they're probably not even using enough load or time under tension to actually activate and grow that muscle. So that's a big thing. And then past that, an easy tip is like learn how to flex the muscle. If you can flex it, most generally, you can learn how to work it. But I'm curious what Kyle's thoughts are here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, especially because it is so easy to overcomplicate it. And even like for some people, they'll look at a squat as just like a huge glute movement, and then they end up doing really funky things. Like I've seen a lot of people who end up doing a squat and then they do like a full thrust at the very top, which is actually very incorrect because they're like, I need to feel my glutes. I need to feel my glutes. When in reality, like when I'm doing a heavy barbell squat, I'm sorry to say, but I'm not feeling my glutes, but it is a tremendous exercise that's going to give me great benefits for my overall glutes, my quads, my hamstrings, just my entire body, which is fantastic. So just something to keep in mind. Like you have to definitely be careful with something like this. And Josh's point of just using like way too light of weight is just a very important thing to consider too, because some people just like slow down absolutely everything. They'll use like 5-10 pounds, which, you know, could be challenging depending on where you're at. And they're just so focused on the squeeze and the contraction that they don't end up getting any actual proper overload, which is actually what's going to help you out, right? So just something to consider. But a couple things that I really like to think about, and this is actually one of the most, in my point, underrated tips. So long story short, today we were hitting legs. The hip thrust machine was taken. So Josh said, hey, let's do some glute pull throughs. We haven't done them in a little bit. And I ended up doing it. Now, the first set that I did glute pull throughs, I was actually thinking about this question because I knew it was going to be asked today as I was looking through the notes. And for my first set, I was just so unfocused. I was thinking about where we were going for lunch. I was thinking about something that we were going to film later. And I was just like not present at all. And I was just like, I don't know how many reps I did. I didn't really feel much because I was just like so not present, right? And one of the greatest things you can do just in order to make sure you're targeting the right muscle groups and super efficient while doing it is actually just trying to be present and think about the muscles that you're working, right? Once again, you can get a little bit overwhelmed with this and like you end up taking it a whole different route. But I do find that when you're actually like paying attention to just being fully in the moment and doing a bicep curl or a hip thrust, like that I find solves a lot of problems. And some people don't even realize that their brain is just going so many different ways. Like, let's just say you happen to be doing a glute pull through and then you're looking over at what this person's doing and then that person, and like you're just so unfocused, and it's so easy to just have that happen and you don't realize that you're completely missing out on paying attention to that mind muscle connection of the exercise. But one of the other things, and kind of my last tip here, is you can totally do some different things before, let's just say you have a glute day or a leg day, just to get the muscles firing, especially the glute muscles. So I have a reels which I'll attach like probably second or third link down below, and that's just going to give you some different movements just to start your workout nice and strong, where you've got them targeted. Essentially, you've got them nice and warmed up, and I find that doing a little bit of glute activation beforehand can help prime you before you do some of these bigger movements. And I've tried it a few times. A lot of my clients, will do it as well, and they find that useful. So those are my main takeaways, and I really hope that it helps.
Yeah, obviously, when glutes are like a main objective, people really want to isolate and feel them as much as possible. So there'll be a lot of work into engaging them and figuring it out. And like Kyle said, what's so nice, if you do a really heavy squat, like your butt will be sore. It's just a reality. If you do lunges, even if you do them pretty incorrectly, your butt's going to be sore. Like any movement where glutes are like a super major mover, even if it is a compound like a squat or an RDL, you can really definitely feel it, and you'll feel that soreness. And soreness isn't always an indication of growth, but what soreness will indicate is that you're working the muscles you want to work. So maybe you're not actively engaging your glutes as much as you think you should, but in 2 days later, every time you sit, you're in pain. That's a good sign. That shows that you've actually worked that muscle, which can be nice. The other thing is we all have different leverages and backgrounds, and you can experiment with different movements and see what feels the best. There's some things too, and there can also be a buy-in. Like cable curls are okay for me. I just don't like them as much because I find I have a harder time going to failure on them. Like I have a harder time really selecting a weight I like, and I don't know. So for me, I actually get way more of an engagement from like a preacher curl, a machine preacher curl, or a standing dumbbell curl. It just works better for me. I feel like it beats me up more and I see more growth. And that's just a very individual take. Like for someone else, they could prefer cable to that. And that's where knowing yourself and programming and building around that can be immensely powerful. The other thing I like to do if you want to circumvent doing like a ton of activation work is anytime I do a new muscle group. So like, let's say I'm doing legs, right? And I've done my squats and I'm going to do like isolate my hamstrings or something. I'll do like a light set, maybe half of my working weight. So if I'm going to use like 100 pounds, I'll do like 50 and I'll just do 8 reps. I'll really work on squeezing that muscle, engaging it and getting it primed. Because if you jump right into your super heavy weight, your problem is it's going to be hard to move it. You're going to start cheating. You're going to do it incorrectly and it's going to be kind of an inappropriate jump. Whereas when you kind of know how it should feel, but you're not getting to that position of failure, it's like a good activation and awareness for it, which can be immensely helpful. So that's something I like to do additionally. Anything else you want to add there?
I just have to stress the importance of form. I know Josh mentioned it, get that free form guide, but I was just thinking, even for some people, I've had them struggle with activating and just feeling it in their glutes on a hip thrust, where some people, they have their legs too far out. That's going to get more back and hamstrings. If your legs are super close to you, it's going to get more quads. And so when you just spend time mastering each exercise and just doing it as properly with all of the cues we have in our form videos, we have a form playlist as well, you're going to make sure you're doing an exercise properly. And when you're doing an exercise properly, you'll know it's going to work the right muscles. Like if you're doing bicep curls and you're swinging the whole time, it's going to be very hard to feel it and to actually work them properly. And that's where I think a lot of people jump ahead to these like crazy advanced techniques. But if you just get the exercise down properly, even just try to experiment with like a squeeze at the top. Let's just say for hip thrust, I'm using that as an example, or even a bicep curl. I do find that that's a good principle just to get you going. But yeah, form is going to be so important and a lot of people overlook it.
Yeah, and if you just spend a little bit of time learning like a good base for form, you'll be more than totally fine. Like you don't need to do anything crazy. And like just taking the time with each exercise to learn it right, watch a video where you're at the machine, it'll slow you down. But even if you do one per like workout, you'll have that for life, right? And you can further optimize on that. And there's cues you can kind of continue to refresh on and make sure you're doing right, which can be great. But when you have that base, it's a lot easier to grow into it. And then comes weight selection. And from there, like the sky's the limit. So really excellent question there. I want to answer that in a little bit of a more advanced way so you could understand some of the underlying concepts behind it, just past basic mind muscle connection. But this is Motivation Monday. We're going to jump into our quotes now because we like quotes. They fire us up. So for fun for me, I picked like a best quote. I typed in best quotes from skateboarders, which I thought was fun because fun fact, I used to be like super into skateboarding. Like that was my life. I was sponsored. I would skateboard like 8 hours a day, probably for like 10 years. Like that's all I did, everything I did. And it's funny because I felt like that's how everyone knew me as. It was like, oh, Josh, a skateboarder. Now it's more like Josh, fitness person. But it's funny because a lot of people don't even know I used to do that. But it's cool seeing for myself and other fitness people, I think, how skateboarding really transferred into fitness. Because for skateboarding, like if you want to learn to do the most basic thing, like to stand on it, that can take a day or two. If you want to learn to ollie, that can sometimes take weeks. And then kickflips can take like months. And then from there, it's like this constant pursuit of trying and failing. It's very similar to bodybuilding or fitness or health or improving your composition, is that as you do it, it's like you're going to fail. You're going to have positions where you go forward a lot and then you go back, and there's just so many similarities and obviously like a lot of growth and opportunity there, which is really exciting. So thought it was a fun parallel, and I got a good quote from it, and this is from Christian Hosoi, and it is, "Fear is a liar, commit or don't go at all." And the reason I mentioned this is I think this is a great example as well to fitness, because so with skateboarding, I don't know if you've ever tried it or you're aware of it, a lot of people drop into quarter pipes. So those are those little rounded ramps, some even like, let's call it a 4-foot quarter pipe, nothing big. For you to be able to do it, you start by putting like the tail end of the skateboard on the coping with one foot, then you put your other foot on, you push hard and you go down. And we've had Kyle do this before. And what's so interesting about this is anytime you teach someone to do this, because you have to transfer your weight, right, from being upright to being like basically fully down. So you need to push hard and you really need to lean into it. But naturally, people have a tendency to be fearful and they'll only push a bit. And because of this, they'll lean back and you'll see them kick back and fall on their back. Like if you watch like a video of people trying to learn to drop in, you would just see people eating it. And it was like a running thing, basically. Anyone you wanted to teach, they wouldn't commit. They'd be scared. They'd be up there. They'd have to do it. And they'd fall really, really bad. And they'd fall often. And only until they fully would commit and push all their weight down and do it, it was amazing how simple it is. And it unlocks in everyone. And they start to understand. You'll notice they'll almost overemphasize that pushing down. They'll do it super hard, like almost unnecessarily, because they realize like this is the key. And I think this analogy is so true because similar to fitness, there's nothing worse than half doing fitness. If you go to the gym sometimes, you eat healthy sometimes and you don't, and you're hot and cold, it is the worst recipe because you get none of the benefits, right? You're not going all in. You're halfway there. You feel like you're trying, but you're seeing no results. Then you start to get that attitude of, oh, this doesn't work for me, or it actually isn't, it's a scam, like fitness doesn't work, I can't get fit, I can't get healthy, right? So instead, if you commit and go all in, it's amazing the difference it makes. And that's why I want to do the scholarship. We've never done this before. We firmly believe that like what you pay for, you pay attention to. Most generally, we probably sign up for free things. Maybe you've gotten our free gifts. Like we have a free 40-page fat loss guide to teach you how to do it. Maybe you've downloaded it before and haven't done it. Or even worse, maybe you've heard us talk about it and you're like, I'm not going to take the time to do it. And maybe that's exactly what you're struggling with. And this would have solved everything, right? But it's easy to pass it by when we're not paying for it. When we pay for it, we're like, okay, this is important. But with the scholarship, if there actually is an objection, you're not able to get started for whatever reason, this will give someone the opportunity who's a great fit, who wants to get fit, the opportunity to do that. And where people go wrong is they think they're not motivated or they're lazy or they don't have the ability to do it. But I've never met someone like that. Usually you're just doing the wrong things. You don't have the instruction. Your systems are broken. You don't have the accountability to it, or you've been misapplying energy. So instead, when you have a coach on your side, that's where you get that full commitment, right? By you saying, I'm going to have a coach, you're fully committed. You're leaning down. It saves you from falling over and over. And where people go wrong is they'll say, I want to do it myself just for some random noble reason. They'll go nowhere. They'll try a trend. They'll go nowhere and fall on their butt. And it just becomes this horrible cycle where you try everything. You feel like it's impossible. And then even maybe worse, you quit. You don't even get the satisfaction of doing it. And like I said with this analogy, when you learn to do it, it sticks with you. Like I'll go with my little sons to the skate park and I'll drop in with them. I'll even sometimes do it holding one of my sons because I'm pretty confident because like I said, I've done it for like 10 years. But it's the same with fitness. When you make that investment in yourself, you learn how to do it for the rest of your life. You learn what not to do. You learn how to overcome any objection. You show yourself, I'll go all in. So whether you want to sign up with us and let us do all the hard work and walk you through what you need to do to have the results you deserve, or you want to apply for this free scholarship, this is your chance to do it. Do not miss out. We're going to pick winners just before Christmas. We'll have an official day that we'll pick everyone. We just decided we were going to do this. Is a fun initiative to give back this Christmas season, which we're so happy about. But so once again, make sure you fill that out. And yeah, once again, the quote is, fear is a liar, commit or don't go at all.
Yeah, honestly, commitment to the right thing is what really moves the needle. And I couldn't help but think about, if Josh were to tell me, hey, you got to drop in, and I was like on my hands or like, my legs were twist tied and I was just doing the wrong thing. Even if I gave it my all, but I was doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to be able to properly do it. And that's where a lot of people in their fitness journey, even if they do commit, when they're doing the wrong thing, such as keto or just like this crazy routine that's just not created for them, or a nutrition protocol that's not focused on sustainability, even if they decide to commit and go all in, they often just don't end up at their destination because they're doing the wrong stuff. And that's where when you apply for this scholarship promo, you're going to be giving us that commitment, but you're actually going to have a game plan that's created for you. So I'm really excited about this. And obviously, I'm really pumped to help one of you awesome people out and just hear all of your amazing stories. So go ahead, fill that out. And I honestly could not just stop thinking about what Josh said with that quote, because I was talking to him today and he was saying, hey, I'm going to get my son snowboarding soon. I was just like, man, I wish I grew up with some of that stuff. Like I learned like in the last few years, like him and I would go out and try new things, whether it was rock climbing, snowboarding, skateboarding as an example. I didn't grow up, but I tried to drop in, and any of the things that I started to get better at was just from committing, right? Like if there was any cue, if I was going over a hill and I was like missing a jump or I just wasn't good at it, if Josh were to just say, hey, just commit, like give it your all, that would usually be the answer, like skateboarding. I remember I failed and I fell like 200 times that one day, and he was just commit, just stick with it, stay the course, and I ended up doing it. So that's just a fun, honestly, thought. And I had a lot of those memories of the things that I would consistently fail at. The second that I just actually committed with the right approach, it made such a big difference. And it's nice because it ties in with my quote today, which is the losers and winners both fail. It's just that the winner gets back up and does it again. So I was listening to Greg Plitt again this morning. It seems like it's a Wednesday ritual before leg day. And I just really like that, because I just did think about the amount of times that I've failed something and you just keep going, right? And even, like BMX biking, we would go and try to do these jumps and these flips, and, even the trampoline park. A lot of our life has just been like trying to figure stuff out. And, I wish I had a lot of it earlier on, but it's just like, even at the age of 30, it's cool because you can still learn all these amazing trends. And if you fail, what really matters is just getting back up. And that's what defines you as a winner. And what I really started to think about yesterday, when I made an Instagram story, was just that, like, along the way of our journey to getting 40 million YouTube 40 million YouTube views, I wish it was subscribers, we failed a lot. Like the amount of times that I didn't know how to edit something, filming wise, like I'm not the best at this. Like even if you saw beforehand, for the last 30 minutes before this, I was so flustered trying to get my microphone to connect, and like I'm not the greatest with this stuff, but we just figure it out. We fail, we learn, we keep going. And I think a lot of people are too quick to give up, and that's why they don't end up getting anywhere with what they're trying to do. So this quote just means a lot to me, as I've been thinking a lot about failures, successes, how to become the absolute best. And I really like it.
Yeah, and into my thoughts, one thing I've been spending a lot of time on is refusing to fail. So in the past, there's things I would do and I just say, okay, this is too hard. I can't figure it out. I've tried once, I've tried twice, especially with little nitty gritty things. Like an example is for our business, I was trying to do this back end thing, this no code software that just notifies us of an event that takes place. So it's just helpful. It's a small little thing. It should take 2 minutes. It wasn't working because of this rare exception, because we've had our account for so long, all these different things. But it took me like 4 hours, but I got it done. And I even just said, I'm refusing to give in now. Like when something needs to get done, I will find a way to do it. And I think just having the attitude of like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find a way. And that's what's cool about skateboarding. I've always liked like talking to other skateboarders, because I think most generally people will try something like skateboarding. Obviously, some people take to it more, but it's easier to quit skateboarding or snowboarding. All the time I'll hear skiing, oh, I've tried it, I couldn't figure it out, so I don't do that, right? Because it sucks, and there's so much buy-in. And I remember with that, learning to ride a dirt bike, anything, like on the other side of that struggle and challenge is like all the joy of that thing. And you just got to pay that price and overcome it. And it's very much the same with fitness, nutrition, health, happiness. Like when you put that buy-in, it's amazing the result that comes from it. So that's my main thought.
Yeah, just the whole concept of figuring out. It's just such a great principle and something I recommend every person is, step out of your comfort zone, try that new thing, try not to accept that failure, and you can become a better and different version of yourself. The one thing I had on the top of my head, I see this way too often that when people get stressed, overwhelmed, tight on money, whatever you could say, so many people are quick to cut out their fitness and their health. And honestly, like I love working with my clients because like everyone always has something going on, but they continuously invest in themselves. And I've had some good conversations with my clients lately where I have to bring them out of a hole, whether it's a family member that is unfortunately gone or, some job got taken away or just something very intense. They continuously invest in themselves and I remind them like how great they're going to feel when they show up for themselves. The ability to be able to take care of other people when you prioritize your health. And it's just, to me, it's so backwards because I get it's the easy thing to do is just get rid of, your gym membership and your good, healthy eating, routine that you're on. And you say, oh, I don't want any accountability from anyone, like when things get tight or when things get tough. But to me, those are the times you need that accountability. You need the support. You need someone by your side and you need those healthy groceries and a good eating routine for yourself. It's not the times like, of course, it's very important when everything's going well. Don't get me wrong, but it's those times that it's just you're struggling with something that you need to dial in and focus more on your fitness. So just a reminder, if there's ever a time when something gets tough for you, try to think, how can I double down on my fitness instead of get rid of it? You'll become absolutely unstoppable. You'll get out of the hole quicker. You'll feel way better. You'll be able to help others around you. I'm so passionate about this and I can't stress this enough.
Yeah, and if you haven't already listened to our Thursday episode, it's the Busy Life Playbook, and it really covers how important the busier your life gets, the more you just need to improve your systems and give yourself that support to not neglect fitness during that time, especially as we get into that time of year. I guess things are slowing down in this sense, but still making a point to make that a priority. But now we're going to take the time to shout out a client who's been in our program, who's been absolutely crushing it. So who do we have?
So this week we have Brandi, and she is 55 pounds down, looking like a whole different person. The last time we shouted her out, she was around 30 pounds, so she's lost a whole additional 25 extra pounds. And what's really cool is, truthfully, Brandi has worked through everything. There was a time, full transparency, where she said, you know what? I don't want to do this. Like, I'm struggling and I just have other things going on in my life. And we were able to bring her back and just, she's so happy that she kept going. Like 55 pounds down, she's in a completely different situation. And to be honest, there will be those times where you feel like you want to give up. Like, obviously today's theme is failure and we're talking a lot about that stuff, but you're going to be so proud that you didn't, especially when there are those times where it's like, where it's right in front of you, where it's like, you know what, it'd be easy to just stop. An example of this is that she had an ACL surgery. So to me, that's such an easy reason to say, you know what, I don't want to do this. Like, this wasn't meant for me. But I just remember like how driven she was to do everything in her complete control, to dial in her nutrition, to focus on mobility, to just do everything she could to become better. And now she's such a different person. So we are so proud of Brandi. And honestly, she's just changed her entire life and it's just going to keep getting better and better. So shout out to you, Brandi, for the commitment of continuously investing in yourself day after day.
Yeah, and shout out to Brandi, like Kyle said, for that commitment more than anything, because it's so easy, especially when our mind, things are busy, it's tough, you're feeling demotivated. I'm just going to quit. I'll do it later. I'll figure it out. Like, I'm going to call it a day. But when you do that hard thing, like on the other side of that, like the results have compounded so positively for her. She's hitting PRs, getting stronger, losing a ton of fat, putting on a ton of muscle. And all of that would have been lost if just for 1 second, that position of weakness, like she left the program. But she stayed in, she invested in herself, and the results on the other side of that. So just the same with you, like having someone there to bring you up when you're down and there's challenges is like immensely valuable. And we'd love to be that support mechanism for you. So once again, if you want to learn more about our coaching, colossusfitness.com, no pressure. You can apply to be our scholarship winner. And you have that opportunity to win $5,000 of prize in the challenge when you go all in. So this is like a crazy deal. But like I said, we're giving back. It's the holiday season, so we're happy to do that. We're going to reach back into the mailbag for our second question. And that is, why do I gain strength on some exercises and not others? For example, I find my deadlift and squat are continuously improving, but no matter what I do, my bench press barely goes up.
This is a great question. And honestly, I can relate to this because this has happened to me in the past. When it comes down to compound lifts, like I do find sometimes it's hard to just get better at absolutely everything. To me, I find squat and deadlift are easy to improve just because you're using heavier weights. So typically, if I were to add on 5 pounds, like it's going to be more of a mental thing. So for me to rip off deadlift from the ground, a lot of it's just going to be like getting my mindset. And there's a lot more to a bench press. Whereas like I find bench press is a lot more technical. And obviously using this as an example, that's why I wanted to focus on. But I find there's a lot of things in the gym, right? Like my lateral raise dumbbells. I haven't improved in them for a little bit of time. It's just, to me, it's a little bit harder to do. And I'm really trying to keep strict form. And, there's some movements where it's like, okay, I can improve my overhead press. Like that alone is like gotten better. And each week, actually, I've been doing it on Saturdays and I've been trying to add 5 pounds and I've been continuously getting up there. It's just a bigger exercise. There's more muscles involved. It's a multi-joint movement. Whereas my lateral raise, once I get to that point later in the workout, I'm using effectively the same weights, right? So not all exercises are created equal, not all volume. Like there are some things that are definitely more challenging. But what I will say is like when you are trying to increase an exercise, try to break down and see what's exactly going on. So as an example, my bench press, I found that when it was really struggling, I would just like keep moving on and just be like, oh, it is what it is. Like it's the way it is. Like I would just have all these different things in my head. But then the day that I said, you know what, I'm going to fix everything. So I remember just going in there. I remember watching YouTube videos on how to optimize like every little thing. And if you do want to improve on a specific exercise, you don't always have to get stronger. And what I mean by that is that like you can actually just improve your technique and therefore you'll end up getting stronger, right? So the day that I started to use more leg drive, the day that I widened my grip just a little bit more on the bench press, which targeted a bit more chest and less triceps, the day that I just pinned on the bench press a little bit more, so that's just effectively getting your back lifted up just a little bit, your lower back, like those things really made a big difference for me. And when you actually focus on it, instead of just going to the gym and just doing, oh, I'm just going to do 5 sets of 5, I'll just do what's on the plan and not really care or try, then that makes a big difference. So that's what really helped me accelerate. I'm still trying to get better at it, but curious what Josh has to say.
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question. I love Kyle's point about his lateral raise not improving, because some things it's very hard. Like even if you're insanely strong and you can strictly do lateral raises with 30-pound dumbbells, the jump to 35 is like massive. Whereas if I add like 10 pounds on my deadlift, right, like 5 pounds aside, that's nothing. Like it's pretty marginal at that point. So that's where it is a little bit tough, right? Like you have to look at the percentage of change, and that's where if you can use things like incremental plates and stuff for certain movements, it can make a big difference. Like some people will bring their own like pound plates or half-pound plates, because it is hard if you're doing these big 5-pound jumps. And even for bench, like especially if you're someone who has a weaker bench, let's say you can bench 100 pounds and you're trying to get to the next jump and you put 2.5s on each side, that's a 5% increase, right? Like that's pretty major. It doesn't sound major, but that can be a big mover and a big challenge in terms of how much weight you're doing. So a lot of different things do go into strength building. And I find people won't push themselves as hard with deadlifts and squats, like per this example. Whereas bench, it's pretty fun. You go, if you fail, your buddy lifts it up. Squat, you get crushed. You got to dump the weight. Like it's a scarier buy-in. So I think people leave way more room there and they naturally see that progress more, as well as like if you're doing things like a squat or a deadlift, it's really big, massive muscle groups. And the more you naturally train and improve your legs, your posterior chain, all these great things, you'll see natural in your back. You'll see natural jumps quite easily. Whereas bench, when you hit a wall, you can hit a wall. And I find too with strength training in general, what's tough with it is, in my experience for myself and a lot of my clients, most often people that are more seasoned, when you're a newbie, everything just shoots up. And a lot of that is because you're optimizing form as you do it more, you're doing more volume, you put on more muscle. So naturally you'll get a ton of strength gain. But people that are seasoned, even on a phenomenal powerlifting program, which I love to make, I find naturally like 2 lifts will kind of go up and 1 will stay a little static. And then sometimes it'll be 2 other lifts. And it's really interesting because sometimes you'll be targeting 1 lift, doing everything for it, and it just won't budge as much as you'd like. So that's part of the joy, right? I think you can get really tactical in strength in general. There's a lot that goes into it. It's like, how much volume are you doing? How's your form? Can you optimize your form? Can you adjust your form, right? Like maybe instead of benching more narrowly because you have naturally strong triceps, you learn to bench wider, where you build out your shoulders to assist that bench. Like, it can get very, very technical, but it is natural for some movements to increase and for others to not. Some things too are just harder for us than they are for other people. Like, if you have really, really long arms, things like shoulder press are going to be additionally hard because you have to go through that much more range of motion, right? Whereas other things might be more to your advantage, like deadlifts, right? Because if you have super long arms, you don't have to lift that weight as high. Like, that's a natural advantage. But at a certain point, there's just like a million things that go into it. It's a really fun question, and there's always something that can be done to tackle it and gain that strength. But it's a very natural phenomenon. It's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong unless you're like leaving it on the table. Like, if you do legs once every week, if even, and you just do the same weights, if not less, like, of course you're not going to gain any strength. Like, you need that intentionality behind it.
I will say, like, I try for most exercises to be around 2 reps left till failure. Like, obviously it'll change depending on what is required of my program. But the one thing I will say on top of that, and Josh got me thinking, is just like, a lot of people, everyone's so different. And what I mean by this is there's some dudes who will never increase their leg strength because as soon as you feel a little bit of discomfort, they just want to stop. You know, it's just like they hate that discomfort. I'm just using that as an example. There's some females who like won't be able to increase their upper body strength because they also don't like that. Like, obviously it could change depending on each person. Whereas like on a leg day, I try to embrace that. I'm like, okay, if I can like try to get to the point where I'm not walking and like it just really hurting, that's how I know I'm doing it right. I know it's not the best indicator, but at the same time, like, it definitely can play a role in just increasing your strength. So you have to really also be kind of careful of your mindset, right? Because like I said, for the dude example, for an upper body day, like they love that discomfort. Some of them are like, dude, I will just blast bench press all day, every day, just get so much better at it. But then the discomfort comes for other things, let's say abs or like, you know, squats or lunges, and then they don't really challenge themselves. And I see a lot of these discrepancies happening where some people for different muscle groups will have different mindsets of like what they're okay with discomfort wise. So you just have to consider and just try to be well-rounded in every area, push upper body, push lower body, push all, you know, pull movements, everything. And if you can really challenge yourself in every area, I do believe you'll be able to improve strength in all different ways, shapes, and forms.
Kyle nailed that. Things that are fun, naturally, you're going to do more of, you're going to like, you're going to optimize, and you'll see more improvement. Legs are tough. Like, you got to, so they say you got to earn it. Like, it's like the difference maker. Even for me with our lunges, I've been trying to increase my weight progressively, same with my split squats. And it's hard because usually the areas, the max is 50. So I've been improving my reps with it, my depth, my quality. And for me, like, I wanted to quit today at like 14 reps, so 7 aside. Instead, like, I need to be doing 18, right? And then I'm going to try for 20 next week. And it's brutal, but I'm like, okay, I need to do it. And of course I could do it. So that would show you where my mind wanted to quit, where I did want to quit. I had 4 more reps in there, and I definitely still had 2 more. Like, I'm working at that RAR2 as well that Kyle had mentioned. So that shows you I would have been leaving 4 reps on the table. I would have been leaving a lot of growth. And that's, once again, something like these harder areas, you got to do these things you hate, like you love them. And that's how you can see more improvement as well. Another phenomenal tool is tracking the weights you're actually using. If you're just not sure, like if you use 30s, 25s, or 40s last week, that's a great way to sell yourself short and just grab whatever. When it's tracked week after week and you know your reps, you're going to want to beat that. Like, you're naturally going to want to improve and push that forward. So that can be a great workaround as well. But excellent question. Thank you for that. And now we're going to go into our third and final one. And that is, are you able to make your own pre-workout? You guys said there are a handful of ingredients that are the most important. Can I just dose those, and if I don't care about taste? So absolutely you can. A lot of people actually do this. I've never really gotten into it because I'm not super like nifty like that. For me lately, I've just been using C4. I try to, like, 3 days a week, I'll use it 3 out of my 5 sessions, and I'll do about a scoop and a half, which is like a dinky amount. It's like 200 milligrams of caffeine, but to me, I find that's enough to kind of pump me up without taking away a lot of my good coffee for the day. But even for myself, for a while, I was trying to get away from caffeine and working out because I'd have a lot of coffees, and I would do stem free, and I just figured out I'll just buy beta alanine. That's what gives you that tingles, kind of get the joy from there. You can just put some citrulline Australian mallet in there as well for pumps. Then naturally you could dose with things like caffeine. You could do a whole myriad of things, and you can absolutely go that route. And you can actually buy like unflavored things online. For me, half the fun is the taste. Like I enjoy just sipping on something that tastes good as I work out. That's something I find is enjoyable. Like I said, I don't care to do this extra work, but you can absolutely do this, and you could dose it based to your liking. Like if you hate beta alanine, don't buy beta alanine. If that tingliness, itchiness, like you just despise it, don't do it. If you love it, you could double up that dose and go harder there and maybe have less caffeine or more caffeine and adjust it based on the day. So it would give you a lot more play. Once again, the cost is unfortunately the taste. But that was a fun question. Definitely something you can do.
I know some people love coffee before their workout. I never got into it because I just, I find my mouth gets super dry. And like Josh said, to me, I associate going to the gym with just drinking something, and it's fun. Even today I didn't have pre-workout, but I had BCA, and I was just like, it was just like getting me in the zone. I'm like, all right, I'm sipping on this. I got my creatine in here. And it was just kind of it's just one of those things where I'm like, hey, when I go to the gym, I have a nice tasting drink, whatever it is, whether it is pre-workout or BCAAs. And that's just my vibe. So yeah, that was a great question. So just a reminder, first link down below, make sure to apply for the scholarship. We want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Peace out.